What happens when a Hollywood icon like Sylvester Stallone walks into what should have been a standard interview on The View, only to find himself ambushed by Joy Behar in a clash so explosive it left the entire studio in stunned silence? Today, we're unpacking the jaw-dropping confrontation that took daytime television by storm and ended with one of cinema's biggest legends walking off the set in disbelief. Be sure to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Was this a bold takedown or a step too far? The stage lights blazed as Sylvester Stallone stepped onto the View set that Tuesday morning. At 77, his powerful stride and unmistakable presence still commanded attention. He came to promote his latest project, expecting light-hearted banter and questions about his legacy. What he got instead was a verbal minefield. Joy Behar was waiting at the panel table, her notes spread out like carefully prepared ammunition. She had clearly done her research, but not for the kind of interview Stallone was promised. As the cameras rolled and the audience applauded, a chill swept through the studio. Even the crew sensed the tension. "Welcome back to The View," Joy began, her voice thick with irony. "We're joined today by Sylvester Stallone, the man who gave us Rocky, Rambo, and, more recently, a few too many political opinions." The crowd chuckled, but Stallone's expression hardened slightly. He could spot a setup from a mile away. "Thanks for having me, Joy," he said, voice gravelly and calm. "Always a pleasure to be here." But Joy didn't waste time on pleasantries. "So, Sylvester," she said, leaning in, "you've been pretty vocal lately about your political beliefs. Some say you're using your platform to spread divisive messages. What do you say to those who think celebrities like you should stick to movies and leave politics alone?" The shot had been fired. Stallone's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. "Well, Joy, that's a pretty loaded question right out the gate," he replied. "But let's be clear. I've been an American citizen for 77 years, and last I checked, the Constitution doesn't say free speech for everyone except actors. Whether I'm a plumber or a performer, I've got a right to speak my mind." "Oh, so now you're a constitutional expert," Joy snapped, dripping with sarcasm. "That's interesting, because some of your recent takes seem a little flexible on democratic values." The studio grew still. The other hosts shifted uneasily. Stallone's publicist looked ready to pull the plug, but Stallone held up a hand. He wasn't backing down. "Joy," he said, his voice sharpening, "I've spent my life telling stories about grit, resilience, and the American spirit. Rocky is about an underdog chasing the American dream. Rambo is about a forgotten veteran searching for justice. If you see something divisive in that, maybe you're the one reading it wrong." Joy laughed, sharp and cold. "Oh, come on, Sylvester. Let's not pretend these are philosophical treatises. They're action flicks with explosions and one-liners. And honestly, some of the messages are downright problematic." Problematic. Stallone's eyebrows shot up. Millions of people around the world have found inspiration in those characters. Rocky taught us to keep fighting. Rambo reminded us to honor our veterans. What exactly is problematic about that? Joy didn't hesitate. How about the glorification of violence, the macho stereotypes, the simplistic take on complex global issues? Your heroes punch or shoot their way through every problem. Is that the best model for this generation? Stallone gripped the arms of his chair. "You're deliberately misrepresenting what those films stand for. Rocky isn't about violence. It's about heart. And Rambo isn't a glorification of war. It's a reckoning with trauma. Maybe if you stopped looking for reasons to be offended, you'd actually understand the stories." Joy's voice rose. "Oh, now I don't understand storytelling. I've been in this industry longer than you've been making sequels, Sylvester. I know a thing or two about narrative and impact." Stallone's eyes narrowed. Being in the industry and understanding it aren't the same thing. You sit here day after day taking cheap shots at people who actually create, who take risks, who put themselves out there. It's easy to be a critic when you've never had to bleed for your work. Silence. Even the audience didn't dare clap. This wasn't playful sparring, it was a full-blown ideological standoff, and it was escalating fast. Joy leaned back, smirking. That's rich coming from someone who's made a career playing the same character over and over. Rocky Rambo. They're just angry men with guns and grit. Is that the role model you're so proud of? Stallone's expression darkened. You want to know the truth, Joy. You've never had to fight for anything. Never had to earn respect when no one believed in you. You sit in your ivory tower, protected by your platform, and judge people who've actually been through the fire. Joy shot back immediately. Excuse me. You want to talk about privilege? You're a multi-millionaire living off testosterone-fueled fantasy roles. Don't lecture me about struggle when you haven't lived a normal life in 40 years. The air in the studio was radioactive. The producers were frozen. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every barb, every glare, every second of a conversation that had spiraled far beyond anyone's expectations. And then, without a word, Stallone stood up. He removed his mic, nodded to the stunned audience, and walked off the set. The sound of his footsteps echoed through the studio, a final statement in a war of words that will be remembered as one of The View's most dramatic moments ever. Every second of this brutal on-air showdown was a masterclass in tension. Two industry titans, decades into their careers, staring each other down with completely different visions of the world of art and of each other. Stallone's voice dropped, low, sharp, dangerous. The kind of whisper that made movie villains tremble. You want to talk about the real world, he said. I grew up in Hell's Kitchen when it actually lived up to the name. I slept in bus stations. I lived in my car. I had $39 to my name when I wrote Rocky. So please, spare me the lecture on struggle. Joy Behar rolled her eyes and waved a dismissive hand, brushing his words away like smoke. Oh, not the rags to riches speech again. We've heard it 1,000 times. That was 50 years ago, Sylvester. What have you done lately, besides cash checks and recycle the same muscle-bound hero on repeat? The co-hosts exchanged nervous glances. The atmosphere had turned radioactive. Whoopi tried to step in, her voice calm, her hand raised slightly. But Joy shut her down with a glare. You know what I think. Joy continued, her voice sharpening. I think you've been milking that underdog story for decades. Meanwhile, you live in a mansion and rake in millions. The real Sylvester Stallone, he vanished a long time ago, replaced by a brand. A persona. A walking cliché of the working-class hero. Stallone's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. Laddie, he said, barely containing his fury. You don't know the first damn thing about me. You sit up here in your designer wardrobe, getting paid no matter what, surrounded by yes men, and you think that gives you the right to tell me who I am. I do have the right, Joy fired back. Because what you put into the world matters, and what you've pumped out for decades is violent, jingoistic fantasy. You sell young men the lie that their fists are solutions, that anger is strength, that patriotism is a punchline. Stallone snapped back, his voice raised now. That's not what my movies are about, and you damn well know it. Rocky is about resilience. About getting knocked down and getting back up. Rambo is about forgotten soldiers, men left behind by a system that used them. If you can't see the humanity in that, then that's your failure, not mine. Joy leaned in, eyes blazing with malice. Humanity? Really? Let's talk about what your movies really taught people. That masculinity means aggression. That respect is earned through violence. That sensitivity is weakness. That the only way to be heard is to fight. You've shaped a generation, and not for the better. You're twisting everything I've ever created. Stallone growled. You're reducing decades of storytelling to some clickbait narrative about toxic masculinity. That's not critique. That's character assassination. Oh, I'm so sorry, Joy said, feigning concern. Am I hurting your feelings, Sylvester? Are you going to cry about it? Or maybe throw a tantrum like one of your movie characters willed? The jab landed like a punch. Stallone's face flushed red. He looked stunned, angry, humiliated. "You know what, Joy?" he said, his voice trembling with intensity. "This, right here, is why people can't stand you. You're not interested in dialogue. You're interested in control, in humiliation, in hearing yourself talk." Joy laughed bitterly. "People can't stand me. That's rich coming from a guy whose last few films went straight to streaming. At least I still have a platform people care about." Stallone's jaw clenched, his temples pulsing. "You want to talk about career? I've been in this business for 50 years. I've created characters that are embedded in American culture. I've employed thousands, inspired millions. What exactly have you done, Joy, besides throw stones from a cushy chair?" "I've held people accountable," she shot back. "I've asked the questions others were too scared to ask. I've challenged hypocrisy, confronted dangerous narratives. That's journalism, Sylvester. Maybe try it sometime instead of hiding behind Instagram posts and nostalgia." "Journalism?" Stallone's voice rose with disbelief. "This isn't journalism. This is a setup. You brought me here under false pretenses, to talk about my work, and instead ambush me with a smear campaign. That's not brave. That's cowardly." Joy's face hardened into something cold. "Cowardice. You want to talk about cowardice? Let's talk about how you built your career glorifying war while dodging the draft. You played a soldier on screen, but in real life, you hid behind medical deferments. The studio fell silent. The co-hosts froze. Even the crew stopped moving." Stallone went pale, then red, then pale again. He gripped the armrests of his chair until his knuckles turned white. "How dare you?" he said, barely above a whisper. "How dare you question my respect for the military? Those deferments were for legitimate medical reasons. But even if they weren't, I've spent my entire career honoring the people who served. You don't get to rewrite that." Joy sneered. "Oh, how convenient. Just like your tough guy act. Real brave when you're cashing the checks, but nowhere to be found when the bullets are real." "You have no idea what courage looks like," Stallone shouted. "Courage is creating something from nothing. Courage is standing for what you believe in, even when people like you try to destroy it. Courage is putting your soul into the world, knowing smug cynics like you will try to tear it apart." Joy's smile turned ice cold. "Is that what this is? You standing up for something? Because from where I sit, it looks like a washed-up action star clinging to relevance by pandering to the worst instincts of your audience." "And from where I sit?" Stallone fired back. "You're just a bitter comic who never broke through. So you make a living tearing down people who did." It was pure combustion now. No script, no filter. Just raw contempt flying back and forth across the studio. The audience sat frozen. The co-hosts were helpless. The control room didn't dare cut to commercial. Joy leaned forward one last time, her voice venomous. "At least I'm not a has-been coasting on 40-year-old glory. Recycling tired scripts for an audience that's already left you behind." "When was the last time you made anything that actually mattered, Sylvester?" The silence that followed was suffocating, and then Stallone stood, quiet, controlled, devastated. He removed his mic, looked Joy dead in the eyes, and said flatly, "You just did the one thing no critic has ever managed to do. Make me regret showing up." And with that, he walked off the set, leaving behind a broken conversation, a stunned audience, and a piece of television history no one would soon forget. When was the last time you actually contributed something meaningful to the culture? Joy Behar snapped. Instead of recycling the same violent fantasy, dressed up as inspiration. Stallone was visibly breathing harder now, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked on hers. His legendary temper, barely restrained, was now teetering on the edge. "You want to know what does matter?" he said, voice low, raw, giving people hope, showing them that no matter how hard life gets, you don't give up. You fight. That's what my movies do. And that's something you'll never understand, because you've never created anything that inspired anyone. Joy laughed. A sharp, cracking sound, half disbelief, half contempt. Inspired, she echoed with venom. You call mindless violence inspiring. You call hypermasculine revenge porn uplifting. The only thing you've inspired is a generation of angry men who think their fists are the solution to everything. The tension snapped into high gear. Both were red-faced, trembling, their words like gunfire. You want to know what your real problem is, Joy? Stallone said, now ice cold. You're jealous. Jealous that I created something that lasts. Characters that live beyond me. Stories that mattered to people. A Joy's expression twisted in fury. Jealous? She spat. Of what? Being a washed-up action star who peaked before Reagan left office. You cling to relevance like a life raft. A line with any cause that puts your name back in the headlines. That's not legacy, Sylvester. That's desperation. You think this is about headlines? Stallone growled. I've been nominated for Oscars. I've built a 50-year career. Rocky and Rambo are part of American culture. What have you built, besides a reputation for tearing people down from a safe distance? I've built a career telling the truth, Joy shot back, full of righteous fury. I've exposed the hypocrisy that your movies promote. I've challenged the kind of dangerous thinking you glorify. Stallone laughed bitterly. Dangerous? You want to talk about dangerous? How about the toxic cynicism you inject into every conversation? How about the way you poison the air with your smug, superior disdain? At least my films give people something to believe in. Joy leaned in, venom in her eyes. Believe in what, Sylvester? That strength is violence. That men should solve problems with rage and firepower. Your movies are manuals for toxic masculinity, and you're too arrogant or too blind to see it. Stallone stood abruptly, the studio falling dead silent. I'm done, he said, his voice slicing through the air like a knife. I came here for a conversation about my work. Instead, I've been ambushed, insulted, and accused of everything short of war crimes. You've spent 20 minutes attacking not just my career, but everything I stand for. Oh, what's the matter? Joy mocked, leaning back smugly. Are we peeling back the layers? Are we exposing the fragile little boy behind the tough guy costume? The one who never grew up, who hides behind fantasy because he's too afraid to deal with reality. Stallone's face turned ghost white, then dark red. You don't know anything about me, he growled. You have no idea what I've lived through, what I've sacrificed to get here. You sit behind your desk with lawyers and producers protecting you, and you pretend that makes you qualified to dissect me. A Joy's smile was cruel. I don't need to dissect you, she said. You're transparent. A scared little man playing pretend tough guys because he never learned how to be a real one. The insult landed like a punch to the gut. Stallone's fists were clenched, his whole body shaking. Not from fear, but from rage barely held back. A real man, he said slowly. A real man doesn't hide behind a desk flinging insults. A real man creates. A real man builds. A real man takes the hits and keeps standing. Not like you. You tear down everything and everyone around you just to feel taller. Joy shot up in her chair, her voice matching his in fury. A real man doesn't crumble when he's criticized. A real man doesn't throw a tantrum the second someone calls out his precious ego. Criticism, Stallone shouted. This isn't criticism. This is a character assassination. You didn't come here to ask questions. You came here to destroy me. And you know what? He stepped forward. Calm now. Deadly calm. You failed. The studio held its breath. I've faced tougher fights than this, in life and in art. And I'll still be standing long after people forget your name. With that, Stallone tore off his mic, threw it on the table, and walked off set, leaving Joy Behar seething in silence and the entire studio in stunned disbelief. This wasn't just an interview. This was the collapse of civility, on full display. You've twisted everything I've ever said, everything I've ever done, into some kind of toxic propaganda, Stallone growled, barely containing the fire in his voice. You've questioned my patriotism, trashed my character, mocked my intelligence, and insulted my manhood. That's not journalism. That's a hit job. Joy leaned back, smiling smugly. If you can't handle the heat, Sylvester, maybe you shouldn't be in the kitchen. This is what happens when you step into the public arena. People judge. And sometimes, that judgment isn't flattering. Judge me. Stallone's voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the weight of decades being spat on in minutes. You're not judging me. You're dismantling me. You've taken a lifetime of work, 40 years of trying to give people hope, and twisted it into something cruel and hateful. I'm not twisting anything, Joy replied, her tone ice cold. I'm just holding up a mirror, the violence, the black and white worldview, the patriotic veneers masking dangerous ideas. You built this monster, Sylvester. I'm just showing it to you. For a moment, Stallone was still. Then, in a voice steady but sharp as glass, he said, I've heard enough. He sat up straighter. I've listened to you attack my work, my values, my name. And I've sat here letting you try to tear down everything I've spent my life building. But I won't sit here and let you erase my legacy for a viral moment on daytime TV. With deliberate finality, he began unclipping his microphone. This interview is over. Joy's eyes widened, caught off guard, but only for a second. Then they narrowed, sharp and hard. Oh, you're walking out. How very tough guy of you. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Right out the door. Is that the message you want to send to your fans? Stallone paused, his hand resting on the mic clip. You want to know what message I want to send? He said quietly. That's sometimes the only way to deal with a bully, is to walk away. That you don't have to sit and take abuse disguised as questions. Especially not from someone who's more interested in destroying you than understanding you. Abuse. Joy laughed, the sound sharp and stinging. I'm holding you accountable. I'm asking legitimate questions about your work and the influence it's had. If you can't handle that, then maybe you never deserved the platform you were given. Legitimate questions. Stallone snapped. You've called me a fraud, a coward, a has-been. You've slandered my intelligence, questioned my integrity, and tried to humiliate me on live television. That's not journalism. That's character assassination. Joy shrugged with mocking indifference. If the shoe fits. Stallone stared at her in silence, his expression a blend of anger, disgust, and something deeper, pity. You know what, Joy, he said, voice lower now. I actually feel sorry for you. You're so consumed by bitterness, you can't see beauty in anything. You can't appreciate what inspires people. You've forgotten what hope even looks like. You don't know the difference between a story and a smear. Joy sneered. Save the speech is rocky. I see the world for what it really is. Not through the fantasy lens of a man who's been living in a Hollywood bubble for half a century. No, Stallone said, standing as he ripped the mic from his shirt. You see the world through your own poison, your own rage. You've been looking for the worst in people so long. You wouldn't recognize the best if it sat across from you on your own show. He tossed the mic on the table. I'm done. I won't be your punching bag anymore. I won't let you use me to feed your cynicism. The Joy, red-faced, leaned forward. That's right, Sylvester. Walk away. Show everyone what you really are. And over. The hill actor who can't handle a little criticism. At the edge of the set, Stallone turned one last time. You know what, Joy? History will decide who left something meaningful behind. I'll let my work speak for itself. And with that, he walked off set, leaving behind a shell, shocked crew, a stunned audience, and Joy Behar sitting alone, her smirk now forced, her triumph hollow. The cameras lingered for a few moments before cutting to commercial. But the damage was done. What began as a routine promo appearance had erupted into one of the most explosive confrontations ever broadcast on The View. A cultural flashpoint. A television moment that would be dissected, mimed, and argued over for years. What do you think? Did Stallone stand his ground? Or was Joy just doing her job? Let us know in the comments. This one won't be forgotten anytime soon.